behind the scenes, the Royal Report.
Good evening, welcome to the Royal Report. I'm Caroline DeRusso, and here's what we've got for you tonight on the show. The palace has finally announced King Charles' return, but that hasn't stopped the royal rumour mill. We'll give you the latest on that story. A royal shake-up sees King Charles deliver new royal appointments. We'll tell you who the winners are there. And Prince Harry's criticised over his outfit choice while presenting a military award. Esther Ku joins us from London to tell us why. But first, the King is back on deck. The palace announced this week that King Charles will be returning to public duties. He's recovering well and remains positive about his treatment, and that can only be good news. The news has sparked a number of excellent front pages in the UK papers: The Mirror, The Daily Telegraph, and The Sun, for example. It has also snuffed out rumours earlier in the week that the King was in dire straits health-wise. There just appears to be this anonymous and incessant element, the behaviour of which, as we all know, is well beyond contempt, who just can't seem to leave these serious health issues alone. Thankfully, the palace moved quickly on this, evidently having learned past lessons. More on that with my panel shortly. But overall, this is a pivotal move. It means another senior royal back to official duties to share the workload, and it means the boss of the royal family is back where he belongs, at the helm. No doubt William and Camilla will be relieved, and it will also take some pressure off Katherine as she continues with her treatment and recovery, knowing Charles is back. For us in Australia, it increases the likelihood of that official visit in October, a visit which has been announced but which was always subject to the state of the King's health. Anyway, onwards and upwards, and hopefully things are starting to get back to the royal normal. Joining me now is News Corp columnist Angela Mollard and news.com.au entertainment reporter Bronte Coy. Bronte, good news, the King is back. But the rumour mill got going again this week after, a couple of weeks of being shamed into the corner, this time with whispers of his apparently dire health and hurried funeral plans. Can you tell us what this was all about?
Yeah, look, it's obviously been quite a grim start to the year when it comes to royal health shocks. So people are a bit on edge, and we have seen what that can do. I've got to tell you, just as you said at the top of the show there was so much excitement and a lot of relief when this news broke on Friday evening UK time over here. People are quite elated to see that there's some return to normalcy for the head of the monarchy. But yeah, look, earlier this week, it had sort of been a line that surfaced that people picked up with, as they will, and ran with, which was about King Charles's funeral plans. Now, something important to note here is that the monarch's funeral plans is something that is laid out and carefully planned and upgraded regularly throughout their reign. So his plans were first laid out the day after the late Queen was buried. So this is something that's been around for some time. And of course, when it emerged that they had been upgraded again, given Charles's diagnosis, given his age, and given the fact that there hadn't been a whole lot of information about what he'd been battling, we don't know what type of cancer it is, people immediately jumped to that sort of very negative aspect of, it must be the end, it's all getting very dire. And we've seen what happens when that picks up and that's allowed to run. As you said, I think the palace has learned some lessons in that regard. And so they were quick to jump on that. And so here we are now with the news that Charles is looking at returning slowly. He is still in recovery and he's still getting treatment, but he's going to start returning to those public duties. So it has really quashed that alarm that was starting to spread and would have taken hold, as we saw with Kate earlier this year, had it been allowed to continue.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angela, to kick off the King's return, he's visiting the families of cancer patients. I think that's just an excellent way for him to get back to official duties.
Yeah, well, look, the reason he's done this is that he wants to meet with the families. He and Camilla have talked about the fact that cancer just doesn't happen to the person who's suffering the illness. It impacts everyone around them, their partners, their children, their families. And he's very mindful of the impact on not just on sufferers, but as I say, on their families. He also very much wants to attach to that as a cause for the very first thing that he does. We know that it's it's 3 months since he's had an outward-facing engagement. He's going to turn up. We don't know what hospice or charity it is at this stage. That's kept under security. But it's very much he wants to put forward the message that even when you have treatment for cancer, even as you're going through it, you can still have a life. So quite a potent message there, and comes from, obviously, for the first time, a deep place of understanding.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bronte, we understand there's also a bit of an update on Princess Katherine and her return to official duties. Again, it'll be a slow start for her, won't it?
Yeah, absolutely. At the other end of the scale with Kate, we don't know what the timeline will be for that. There's so much patience and understanding and compassion for her. So there's no timeline on her return to public duties. There's also absolutely no feeling of a rush from the public, although, of course, she is missed from the public eye. So what we know is that she is still in treatment. She will have a recovery period, but we're starting to get an idea of what it might look like when she does eventually return. And that will be that they will be lowering the pressure of those engagements. She will have so much attention on her. There will be such a spotlight on her. There already was. You can only imagine when she returns after this extended period away. And so it's likely that she'll be doing more private engagements to begin with, things in a more contained setting with a lower amount of people, just to kind of allow her to ease back in and have that transition after what has undoubtedly been an unbelievably difficult time for her and the family. And it just allows her to ease in, and also to kind of manage the public expectation of what we can expect. You know, you can't, after this period off and after battling through that, you know, for her to just jump back in and be in front of crowds of thousands is a huge order. So, yeah, it's good to see that this is probably the approach we'll be getting whenever that is. It is important to stress we have no idea when she will be returning.
And Angela, Katherine might not be around at the moment or public at the moment, but the King has made some new royal appointments this week, including a new appointment for the Princess of Wales. So can you tell us who's been recognised and what's the purpose of these appointments at this time?
So Camilla, William and Kate have all got honours in this Companion of Honour. Well, Kate's got one that's called the Royal Companion of the Order of the Companions of Honour. Now, they may sound wordy, you know, William's one's got a large, long title, Camilla's has as well. But what's significant about these are huge awards in terms of service. If you think about it, Kate has been attached, she's been in a relationship with William now. We've known about the relationship for 20 years, but they do the work. They don't necessarily get the recognition. Yes, we give them media recognition. We possibly give them too much recognition for their liking. But this is the King making sure that they know that their work is significant. And what's particularly significant about Kate's one is that it's an order of a companion that was set up by George V in 1917. It's never been given to a member of the royal family. It's given for services within arts, medicine, science, and as service itself. And what's significant about that is that, of course, it nods to Kate's extremely important work in early childhood learning. The other people that have this award are David Attenborough, Judi Dench, Elton John, so people of some significance in public life.
Yeah, that is absolutely divine. And look, Bronte, while Kate is still recovering, Charles and Camilla, well, they continue with the official commitments. Now, obviously, there's things going on every week, but what's been on the agenda for the Royals this week?
Yeah, it's been a big week, and certainly the other senior royals are keeping busy and stepping up while Charles and Kate have been receiving this treatment. So Queen Camilla, who has been very busy, she was up in North Yorkshire visiting the Royal Lancers, which was her first time since becoming the Colonel-in-Chief. And then also we had Prince William in the West Midlands. He was visiting initiatives that are quite close to his heart, which is mental wellness and also tackling homelessness. So there was a real focus on schools and young people during that. We saw the Duke of Edinburgh on Anzac Day representing the royal family. He laid a wreath at Hyde Park Corner during the service there. But I have to say, it may be my favourite of the week. We had Prince Louis's birthday and weren't sure whether we were going to see anything from the little guy, but we did get the traditional photo, which was taken by Kate and sources were at pains to mention that it was unedited. But he looks really happy. The family's had a really difficult time, as we mentioned earlier, and it was really nice to get a beautiful portrait of him taken by his mum. So as I said, a really busy week with the royals. They're certainly still keeping things running there.
And that smile, oh my God, that child is just divine, isn't he? Anyway, moving on. Angela, a very interesting piece has been published this week in The Telegraph with comments from various PR experts about how Harry and Meghan can improve their public image. There were some really interesting and definite takeaways here.
Oh, there was. And actually, I've had this conversation with myself with PR friends. We've sat down and we sort of brainstormed, how do you solve a problem like Meghan? I mean, the fact is she needs to improve her PR, particularly in the UK. Now, this piece had some great ideas. That it suggested that, you know, there was no one that needs a greater rebranding than Meghan other than Prince Andrew. That was one suggestion from a PR. I liked the one that said, be less American. How she does that, I don't quite know. The other one said, find the self-deprecation switch within you and switch it on. Another said, why don't you show us more about who you are rather than telling us who you are? See, these were fairly difficult. I'm just looking here. Show us who you are, be less American. And then also to highlight the stories that are genuine, that there's a feeling that Meghan doesn't have synthesis in her branding, that she skips from one thing to the other. She goes from, you know, jams to children's charities, to humanitarian projects, to acting, to presenting, to, you know, to walking the red carpet sort of thing. She's not really she's not got joined up thinking around her PR strategy, but really hard job. As we know, she did, of course, she and Harry have hired a PR executive in the UK. Primarily, I think he's in consumer goods products, so he's going to be there, you know, pushing her jams and spruiking that part of her working life. But I really do not know how you turn around the problem of Meghan, particularly in the UK. Bronte will speak to it better than I can because she's now living there, but every friend I have in the UK is anti-Meghan.
Yeah, it does seem to be that way, doesn't it, Bronte? And I think, you know, she started out with so much goodwill and has just totally struggled to capitalise on that.
I know. There's so much to say on this topic, so I'm going to try to make it concise because I have a lot of thoughts. As Angela said, it is very hard to find a Meghan fan here, and I really mean that across generations. It is something that seems to be widespread across age brackets, which is interesting. Something like 2/3 of the country don't like her, which I find interesting that they now appear to be targeting the British market, because honestly, I would have thought they'd just give up at that point. It is a difficult task. Power to them if they do try to take that on. But the other part that I find interesting is there's a lot of advice in that article. Something that has been alleged over recent years is that Harry and Meghan do not take PR advice very well. Now, this is alleged. This is something that's been claimed from sources from their camp at certain times. Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But I guess we will eventually find out, you know, with this new strategy in place, whether or not it works and whether they take advice. I guess we'll see at this point.
I guess we will. Now, Bronte, I've only got 30 seconds, but a quick update on the Danish royals. The beautiful gala portrait of the King and Queen. Can you tell us about it very quickly?
Absolutely. Spectacular portraits. Their first gala portraits taken since they ascended the throne in January. Most importantly, let's talk about Queen Mary. She's wearing the crown jewels for the first time since becoming the Queen. And these beautiful portraits are going to be hung at state institutions around the world, such places as Danish embassies, for example. So a spectacular photo. Love seeing our Queen Mary looking so regal. She just embodies it. I mean, what more can you say? Look at that picture.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. Angela Moller, Bronte Coy, thank you so much for joining us. And coming up, Meghan Markle's lifestyle brand is making headlines again for probably not quite the right reasons. Esther Ku joins us from London to discuss that and much more. Welcome back to the show. Joining me now is writer and broadcaster Esther Ku. Esther, Harry is never far from controversy, as we well know. Some of it's deserved and, well, some's a little over the top. He did cop some criticism, though, this week over a recorded video tribute to Sergeant First Class Elizabeth Marks, who was named Soldier of the Year by the Military Times. Now, what was this kerfuffle all about?
So the kerfuffle was for two reasons mainly. The medals he chose to wear for this remote presentation of the award. He wore the basically three of the Queen's Jubilee medals, so her platinum and so forth, and then he wore his operational operational award for his time in Afghanistan. Now people are questioning why he didn't wear the medal that he got for coming to the king's coronation. People are saying that's a snub to the king, and he's trying to create a clear line between his life pre the Queen and before he fled to the US with Meghan, and after when his father became king. Now we're not sure. Obviously, it's hard to tell whether these kinds of moves are calculated by the Sussexes, because that would require us to give them a degree of intelligence and cleverness that many people are not necessarily willing to give them. The other controversy was why Prince Harry was the one presenting this award. You know, he's not an American soldier. Obviously, he has a relationship with the recipient, with Sergeant, but with Sergeant Marks, but he isn't an American soldier. This is kind of the highest award that you can get. This lady is a 5-time Paralympian athlete, champion, and she's, I think, a 4-time Invictus Game winner as well. So yes, they do have a relationship somewhat, but people are saying that they're better people to give her that award as opposed to Prince Harry. Some are accusing the Military Times of just using his name for popularity, for propaganda, for clout, that sort of thing. They feel like it's an insult, and they're more deserving people to hand out this award. And obviously there's controversy about, you know, Prince Harry's time in Afghanistan. He was at the time third in line to the throne. People are saying that he wasn't in any real danger. So he may not be the best person to have actually been to vouch for the war in Afghanistan and being a serviceman there. Again, that's all down to speculation. But these are the main reasons why. I mean, Prince Harry has made it very clear that he was sad to give up his military sort of accolades and his ties to the military when he left the royal family. It's something that he's been very vocal about, and his ties to the Invictus Games has kind of been his way of still giving back to the community. But whenever you have these sorts of things, there's always going to be criticisms about why is he choosing to wear the kind of regalia that he is. You know, this is someone that wasn't allowed to wear his military uniform for the king's coronation because that's an honor reserved only for working royals, and I'm sure that wasn't something that he was very happy with, especially because it was basically him and the disgraced Prince Andrew that were not in any sort of regalia.
And still on Harry, and there are whispers that the CEO of the Invictus Games is attempting to ease Harry out. Is that true, or is that just the function of an organisation becoming more established?
I think it's more the latter than the former. So Mike Tindle, who is Prince Harry's cousin-in-law, effectively, has been made a patron of the Invictus Games. Now he's not, you know, obviously Prince Harry, he didn't start the Invictus Games, but he has been made a patron of it. And people are saying maybe this is a move towards kind of detoxifying the brand, because everywhere Meghan and Harry goes, there's always some sort of noise or controversy, or, you know, they've not really endeared themselves to the public, so there's always going to be a certain degree of negative press that comes with it. People are always skeptical that they're doing what they're doing to make more Netflix dollars or to enrich themselves or to whinge more about their loss in life. But I don't think that that's the case. I think Prince Harry has been very clear that he's very dedicated to the Invictus Games because it's basically the last remnant of his life as a working royal. And I'm sure it's something that he holds dear. He seems very dedicated to military servicemen. Some of his actions have been quite peculiar in that respect, particularly talking about his Taliban kill count, which many former army military veterans have said that's a huge no-no. That's very grotesque and crass. But you know, Prince Harry has made it very clear, at least vocally, that he's dedicated to the Invictus Games. So I don't think, even if they wanted to push him aside, they will. He is coming to the UK in May for the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, and that's going to be, you know, another. There's going to be another question mark there. Is he going to reconcile with his family? What's the relationship going to be like with his family? Obviously, the Invictus Games is something that he was allowed to start because of the royal family. He did have a lot of help from his brother when he first launched it. So now that the relationship has basically broken down, there are questions about what is he going to do here? Rightly so, what is his relationship with the Invictus Games going to be? Are the royal family, can they say that this is no longer something that he can deal with? We don't know.
And last week on the show, we talked about Meghan releasing her strawberry jam product as part of American Riviera Orchard. And the discussion this week has turned to which celebrities received it. Do we know who they are?
Yeah, so she sent it to a whole host of celebrities, the likes of Kris Jenner, Mindy Kaling, Tracy Ellis Ross, the daughter of Diana Ross, who's now a well-known actress. So she sent it to kind of the who's who of Hollywood. Some of them went on her podcast, the doomed, eventually failed podcast by Spotify that she had before it was cancelled. And so, you know, she's trying to subtly create some buzz. These people putting it on their social media saying, thank you so much for our jam, Meghan. We've never had jam before. Is kind of drumming up the hype that they would like. There's obviously been a bit of a competition indirectly with the royal family's jam, the jam that they sell, and Meghan's jam. People are saying there's been an uptick in sales basically for the royal family's jam because people prefer to support the royal family's products as opposed to Meghan's products. Even though Meghan's jam isn't on the market, she's just sending it to celebrities to create buzz. And you know, we'll see where it goes. This is it's a bit strange that she kind of went from a working royal, even though she wasn't in that position for long, to kind of like a Martha Stewart, you know, influencer type wannabe. It should be an interesting transition. I'm sure people are waiting to see what she does with the brand. American Riviera Orchard, though, is quite a mouthful. I don't know who advised her on that name, but it sounds like some sort of series, or it's just I think she could have chosen a better name.
Yeah, and I did not have Battle of the Jams on my bingo card for 2024. But anyway, royal family news is the gift that absolutely keeps on giving. But still on American Riviera Orchard, and I do agree, it's an absolute mouthful. We understand that Meghan is struggling to find a CEO for the venture.
Yeah, so apparently there have been a few candidates that have been considered for the role. Again, it's not surprising because, you know, Meghan, I don't think she has the skills equipped to be the CEO. She'll probably just, you know, be the face of the brand. Since she and Harry moved on from the UK, it's clear that the only role they can carve out for themselves is some sort of influencer type role where they lend their names and they're soon, I suspect, to be defunct titles to anything that they do. Apparently, they've been struggling to recruit a CEO. They've interviewed a few people. I have this sneaking suspicion that Meghan wants to hire like a woman of color. I don't know why. It just seems like something that's very on brand for her. And so she's kind of looking for the right PR fit as well for the CEO for this role. It's curious which kind of person will take it on. You know, Gwyneth Paltrow's lifestyle brand Goop also has a CEO as well, so it's not something that's unusual. But we're just waiting to see how this kind of evolves.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree. Esther Ku, thank you as always for joining us. Now, before we go, the first statue commemorating Queen Elizabeth II has been unveiled in the village of Oakham, and it includes, as it should, the immortalisation in bronze of her dear corgis. Here it is. I love that. And that's the show for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. Up next is Newsnight. Good night, and we will see you next week.